Indie games have tactical nuked the throne of AAA games. They are drop-kicking a $220 billion industry run by titans like Activision-Blizzard and EA. How did this happen? Well, imagine this. One day your toilet suddenly explodes, drastically reducing your quality of life. Many of the world's greatest ideas are formed on the porcelain throne, so you need to get that thing up and running again quickly. Here are your choices. Option A, you call up a big-name plumber. He shows up late the next day and begins work on your thunderbox. After a while, he takes payment and then leaves. That night, when you make a visitation to the room of relief, you find out he didn't finish his job before taking your money and leaving you with a disaster. Yes, I'm talking about poop. Poop? Also known as your average AAA game. How frustrating. Option B, you telephone a new plumber who's trying to get his name out there. He comes to your house promptly the next morning and gets to work straight away. A little while later, he finishes up, makes sure you like the result of his work, and then collects payment before cleaning up and leaving. Now, he didn't install the Master Blaster 4000 bidet or a gold-plated toilet lid, but the Oval Office is back in action and it only costs half what the other plumber wanted. This obviously represents the indie games in this scenario. What a pleasant experience. This goofy situation describes the surface-level differences between most AAA games and well-known indie titles. You already know that FIFA is generally hated by gamers because of lazy copy-paste development and predatory macro-transactions. Nothing micro about it. You believe Cuphead, Hollow Knight, and Hades are some of the best games available right now, and you'd be right. I want to dive deeper than that though. I don't know how many licks it's gonna take to get to the center of this video game Tootsie Pop, but let's find out. Chapter 1. AAA Games. In order for indie games to succeed in an industry dominated by mega corporations, there had to be a problem with supply and demand. You can't easily break into a market that's demand is met by its supply. From the outside, it looks like these larger companies should be able to meet the demand of gamers. They have tens of thousands of employees, dozens of studios across the world, and fat stacks of cash from investors. But in reality, what they're doing is increasing the supply of video games without meeting the demand for a variety of quality games. Now, when I say the words AAA games, two things come to mind, aside from feeling a little nauseous. The first thing commonly associated with AAA gaming is the type of games these big companies manufacture. I'll list a few of them now. Take notice of what they have in common. Madden 23, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Battlefield 2042, Overwatch 2, Last of Us Part 2, Dying Light 2, The Division 2. Now I know you caught that hidden little secret, but I'll give a hint so any big gaming executives watching can follow along with us. You ready? Yes, every single title I listed is a sequel in a well-established intellectual property. So, 2 means bad? Not quite. The problem with making sequels to successful games is that it can lead to a lack of creativity. Developers want to capitalize on what worked before. They don't want to take any risks in a follow-up to a popular title. Additionally, some sequels could feel really forced. They might make sense to the company's financial department, but not in the context of the game or to players themselves. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is the perfect example of this. Infinity Ward could have released any new series of games under the Call of Duty brand with their 2019 release, but they chose to reboot the Modern Warfare series. The result of this is that we now have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, number 2, 2022. This was the ultimate safe game for them to produce. Not only is it the 20th Call of Duty in 20 years, but it's also the sequel to a successful reboot of an extremely popular sub-series within the biggest first-person shooter franchise in the history of gaming. Activision is so greedy and creatively bankrupt that they had to make one game 20 times. There's a severe lack of variety in AAA games because companies only want to invest in what's proven. That means no new IPs and no risky innovation in game design outside of developing new predatory monetization strategies. If you aren't A, a cinematic experience with insane production value, B, a massive open world game with tons of checklists to complete, or C, another entry in a long-running series, you aren't getting approved at a AAA company. Creativity won't matter to them until its absence hurts their bottom line. Then there's the quality discussion. Look, you've already seen tons of videos on this, so I'll keep it short. AAA games are frequently sold for full price as incomplete products. Companies aren't selling you a complete game. They're selling you a promise that one day you'll have a complete game. Cyberpunk, Mass Effect Andromeda, Fallout 76, Battlefield 2042, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet all launched in such an embarrassing state that if I were a game director and my name was credited on one of those piles of elephant dung, I would probably wear a paper bag on my head and draw a scarlet L on myself to remind myself of my shame. Trying to find a complete, polished AAA game is like looking for a micro-universe where Taco Bell sells real meat that's located on the surface of a snowflake that's inside a working McDonald's ice cream machine in an alternate Earth that exists on the other side of a black hole that's located in the farthest possible galaxy from the Milky Way, all while using your 2200 vision to look through a telescope from the time of Galileo. Do they exist? Yes. Can you name 10 of them without checking the internet? I'll let you answer that. Chapter 2. Indie Games. I'm so glad we're done with that section because looking at AAA games and doing research on them is bad for my heart. I was about to call my doctor to get my blood pressure checked. So we've gone over the fact that the big players have left a huge hole in the middle of the video game market puzzle, and indie games seem to be exactly the right shape to fill it. The reasons for this? First, variety. There's no idea of a safe game when it comes to indies. The hugely popular Vampire Survivors doesn't follow any industry norms in regards to graphics. By all accounts, it looks awful. But who cares? It's a fun $5 game with an addicting gameplay loop. It doesn't try to tell a complex story or focus on detailed animations because it knows exactly what it wants to be. A short game that puts fun at the forefront. Because indie devs don't have hundreds of millions of dollars riding on their game's financial success, they can let creativity and passion guide their development process, rather than spreadsheets. Nothing about Undertale fits into the AAA narrative for success. It isn't a cinematic marvel, it doesn't feature a sprawling open world, and it has no predecessor. Yet it is one of the most celebrated games of the last decade, with an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam at more than 168,000 reviews. And it was made by one person. Oh, you don't want an innovative RPG that subverts expectations? Well here, take this open world Viking game. Get that garbage out of here, I meant this one. Valheim. 5 people sat down in front of their computers and crafted this absolute masterpiece. The amazing survival and crafting gameplay. The exploration and real sense of danger when you're adventuring. I mean, for Pete's sake, it has a clarinet song. A clarinet? Just go play it and thank me later. Look, you can find whatever kind of game you want if you look into the world of indies. The variety here is as deep as AAA games are shallow. In addition to creating unique experiences that we haven't seen before, indie devs generally release finished products. Wow, what a high bar the industry has set. Sometimes a game is in early access for years. Sometimes a Kickstarter project takes absolutely forever to actually materialize. But your chances of handing over your money and receiving a complete video game are astronomically higher when completing a transaction with an indie studio than they are with a massive AAA corporation. Indie devs are a lot closer to their fan bases, actually taking critiques and adjusting gameplay based on community feedback? Imagine that. They still remember that they wouldn't be anything without their customers, so they actively seek to please and maintain a good relationship with them. This means delivering on promises, releasing games in a good, playable state, focusing on elements that their players actually love and care about rather than trying to get mass appeal, and responding to player concerns. Games like Hades, Terraria, and Stardew Valley are absolutely dripping with quality. They can't hold their massive quality in, it's bursting out. You can tell how much these developers strive to make the best possible game they can for their players, and the results speak for themselves. Indie games like Hollow Knight have more care and polish in them than an entire library of modern AAA releases. You don't have to look very far to find an indie game that'll satisfy your unique desires as a gamer. You might like vastly different things than me, but we can both find games that match our interests. Now I want to say, not every AAA game is bad. Elden Ring, God of War, and Hogwarts Legacy are all games released recently that are absolutely amazing. They're at a level that no indie dev could ever even dream of creating. I also want to say another really obvious statement. Not every indie game is good. There are thousands of games released on Steam each year, and many of them are complete trash. As always, this isn't a black and white issue, it's more of a gray zone. I'm just here to make a grand, overarching statement that indie games as a whole have matched, if not surpassed, AAA games in their ability to deliver quality experiences to all types of gamers. This isn't a bad thing. The fall of AAA gaming has allowed for the rise of the indies. I'm just glad we all have great games to play. Please click the like button if you enjoyed this video. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.